All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Waterfowl Management Podcast. We've got a great episode lined up today, and I'm super thrilled for our guest. But before we do that introduction, Dad, how was scalloping?
It was rather tough, actually. Everybody was pretty excited about it, but had 7 people in the boat and 2 5-gallon bucket limit, and we didn't get the first quarter of a bucket. So
Really?
It was pretty tough, yeah. Many boats. It kind of murked up the water pretty heavy with all the boat activity, so you couldn't see real well, and just struggling to get to any place that there wasn't 25 boats in front of you. So, but it was still fun. And we'll go back out again this week during the week, and it'll be better when we don't have everybody else out. So
awesome. Did you get to cook them at all or anything?
No, but I got to clean them all. So
okay, good.
And that's an experience, just chucking all the scallops, especially when they're not real big to start with. So, but it's good, all good.
Awesome. Well, kind of as a refresher for folks that might just be joining us, we're nearing the end of our series on the 5 pillars of what we deem a well-managed wetland. And so, again, what we did when we came up with these is looked at the public and private places that were doing a really good job, and what attributes did those places have that made them stand out in our mind. And so we came up with those. And so this episode today, which we're really excited about, is going to focus more on pressure again. And so kind of our second episode on pressure here. But I'd like to introduce our guest, Ira McCauley. Probably needs no introduction. Very, very active in the outdoor space. But Ira, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, by trade and training, my vocation is as a veterinarian. And so I graduated vet school from the University of Missouri in 1995. My brother and I practiced really mixed animal medicine for the first 3 years. And I was an emergency vet for about 3 years and worked at probably 15 different clinics in Kansas City. So I learned a lot of things that I liked about the way practices were run and a lot of things that I didn't like. And in 2000, my brother Aaron and I bought a practice here in our little bitty town of New Melly. Dan Crigler's my neighbor. And then we built another practice, or started another practice right then also. And so that was, believe it or not, I graduated from vet school 31 years ago. So that's my vocation, but my hobbies have really kind of done, they went from hobbies to being huge parts of my life. So in 1998, I started Momarsh. Back in the beginning, we really just built like fiberglass layout boats. And then around 2005 or 6 or 7, somewhere in there, I decided that I wanted to not get away from the boats, but, the boats were expensive. They were difficult to store. They were fragile. They didn't work well at all on a retail type environment. So I wanted to have things I wanted to build products that would let people hide the same way in an aquatic environment that you can with layout boat, but I wanted them to be things that were affordable and storable, things that a college kid or anybody could utilize. So the first product that I sourced overseas was the Inviolounge, which was like a 5-position ratcheting closed cell phone seat. And then in 2011 or 12, I brought the InvisiChair and the InvisiLab into the market. And then it all just built from there into, a lot of dog training stuff, hunting blinds and all that stuff. And so, that was something I was super passionate about that took off and I'm still actively involved in. We have some really cool things, new things come down the pike this year also. So yeah, it's been awesome. And then back in like 2007, my brother and Tony Vanmore came to me and said, "Hey, we have an idea and we want to start an outfitting business." So we'd done a lot of guiding, all of us had before that. And it was really just we wanted to buy a piece of property that wasn't even for sale. And that was a way to help pay for it. And so they'd written up a business plan. They said, "Read our business plan." So I take this business plan and I finally read it and I'm like, this could work. But we have 2 problems. 1, the property is not even for sale. And 2, none of us have any money at all. And so we ended up talking the owner into owner financing it, which I'm sure he was laughing as hard as he could, thinking, I'm going to get my property back. And, the deal was we had to do an electric run and drill a well. So, yeah. So Habitat Flats, it's been just one version of the American dream, but it's been pretty incredible from a partnership standpoint and a real estate investment vehicle. It's been interesting. It's been fun. It's been hard work, but yeah, it's been awesome. So yeah, those are kind of my three main pillars of what I've done over the past 30 years. And there's several other little things, but now I'm kind of semi-retired, which is weird. And it wasn't really by my own choice either. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of trying to figure out how to navigate some of these days where I don't have 8 million things I have to do.
Sometimes I find that that's actually harder sometimes than if you have just a million things on the schedule, one after the next. And then it's like, wow, what do I do with myself now?
That is no doubt. Usually I don't have that problem, but there are days where I'm like, man, how many times can I walk up and down this hill? I mean, what am I going to do today?
I've got to add something to this. I just can't hold back. So Ira talks about his entrepreneurship and his profession before that and everything. But one of the things that I see about Ira and Aaron and all that whole business is they've given back tremendously to the waterfowl resource. So from a biologist standpoint, I sit back and look at the hunting enterprise, and that's awesome. I'm a hunter. I'm a waterfowl hunter. But I also see the give back and the exemplary conservationist that Ira and Aaron and that whole enterprise is. So I just want to throw that out, make our listeners aware that Ira's been producing a lot of ducks in the prairie pothole region by providing spring habitat, fall habitat, the bigger picture. And I just want to make sure and shout that out.
Well, I appreciate that, Dan, because there are a lot of haters out there. So thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
I also want to say kudos. I agree. Our platform pretty much focuses and preaches on habitat, and habitat's something that we need to provide on all 4 seasons, not just in the fall. All of us are avid waterfowl hunters, and we understand that appreciation. But habitat needs to be bigger if we can make it bigger and cover all parts of the duck's life cycle as best we can.
Absolutely. So what a great segue into the main topic of the day. And so really, I want to focus our conversation on, Ira, how you manage pressure on your property. And so I know a lot of folks have really, really strict rules and limitations around how they utilize their property, when, where, how many people, all the different things that could go into that. And so, I guess I'd be curious just to kind of first off, get your interpretation of that. Do you enter the season with rules? Do you have rules for the property, when, where, and all those different things?
Oh, yeah, 1,000,000%. But what might help, I want to see if I can turn this camera around and just kind of give you guys just kind of a general layout of the main places that I hunt and that we manage, just so that it'll hopefully make a little more sense. So this is Locust Grove, this kind of Homer Simpson or Bart Simpson looking piece there. And this is Fountain Grove. So Fountain Grove's East Side Refuge is up here. And so there's Locust Grove. It's 420 acres. This is what we call Locust Branch. It's like 160 acres. And this is Bob Mason's place. And so we manage this 800 or so acre tract as one unit. Okay. And so this piece we have as a refuge, an inviolate refuge. I say inviolate. The very east end will get hunted sometimes on a west wind. We hunt this middle piece here, and then we hunt this north piece of Locust Grove, and then the whole south part is all refuge. So you got Fountain Grove's refuge up here, our refuge there, and our other refuge there. So this 800 acre block is what I'm going to be talking about, and it's managed as one piece. And that's, that stuff is in the Golden Triangle. So we're kind of right in the heart of that, operating just our little part of the world in a little part of the world. We purchased Locust Grove in 2005. My buddy Bob Plummer owned it, and he said you can either purchase it for $2,250 an acre, unencumbered, so not enrolled in any programs, or you can purchase it for $1,000 an acre because WRP was paying $1,250. We weren't, and we needed 10% down. And we said, well, that plays our hand right there. Go ahead and enroll it, and we'll try to figure out where to come up with $42,000, which took forever. And so we bought it encumbered. And from the beginning, we decided that we were going to make part of it a refuge. And of course, it takes time, when you have a brand new WRP, to get all the infrastructure in, to get your wells drilled. Not to mention that was right when we were starting up Habitat Flats. So we really didn't even hunt Locust Grove hardly, because we were always hunting somewhere else, So I'd say for the last 15 years, I've kept a very detailed logbook on everything, not just harvest numbers, but, preseason prediction, a postseason summary, a summary of what all's gone on, as well as daily logs of who hunted and what was shot and all that stuff. But yeah, from the beginning, we decided that we were going to leave the south part as a refuge. And since about 2011, we've made our refuge management plan where we don't, I mean, the only reason anyone's even going to look down there is if we have to check a structure. You know, if we have a structure, we're like, man, I don't know. I just want to make sure that it's not leaking. And I think this year we're just going to put a camera on them so that we know exactly where we are level wise down there and all that. Because when you're not going into a place, it's hard to really, I mean, you have kind of benchmarks here and there, but it's hard to know exactly where you are on the structure as far as water levels and whatnot. So that, you know, and of course, when it was first enrolled, it was just straight ag, you know, I mean, it was a corn and bean field. And now you go in there and it's amazing what 20 years will do to a place. You know, there's trees everywhere. There's I mean, it's just so diverse, so interesting, you know. I mean, we're going to have turkeys roosting there here anytime. You know, we've got 30-foot tall trees there now. So it's really cool. And we, you know, we manage our refuge components very differently than we manage our hunting components. So especially in our refuge components, but really generally on everything, we're doing an early drawdown across the board. And when I say an early drawdown, I'm talking into March. You know, once most of our mallards are gone back through, we're going to start getting that water off of there. And the main reason that we do that is we have way less problems with spike rush if we do an early drawdown. So we're going to promote broadleafs. You know, we're going to have mainly smartweed, and it's good for our shrub scrub, get that off of there. And so, you know, in our refuge components, we want cover. We're not so worried about like what is the best food down here. We want those ducks to be able to feel secure. So smartweed helps you there because it's tall. Your shrub scrub helps you there for all the obvious reasons. And so that's what we do there. We did, I'm going to say maybe 12 years ago, we had a big spike rush issue. We let it get away from us a little bit when we went through and sprayed it with the plane. That was a horrible idea. We ended up killing quite a bit of our shrub scrub. So we would never do that again. But just for people that are thinking about this, you know, if you can kill that stuff way quicker than you can get it to come back. So just, you know, if you're wanting a strong shrub scrub component, you're going to want to spray it either with a drone or with UTV or something. But man, you know, spraying with the plane, you're gonna nuke stuff. But yeah, when it comes to the refuge component, I mean, the only time we see those ducks is when they're flying. You know, we can hear it, but we don't look at them. Gotcha. Except by drone. We do fly a drone there probably about weekly to get an inventory.
Awesome. How high do you fly your drone, Ira? Do you know?
I'd say generally probably about 200 feet.
Do you flush birds when that happens, or are they pretty settled in?
No, the ducks are they don't pay a whole lot of attention to them unless you get them real low. You know, I know I was talking to NBC biologists, and they wanted us to fly like we're going to try to do an inventory, but this is including a species inventory. They wanted us to fly at like, I forget, it was low. It was like 60 feet or something, you know, and I was like, man, I don't know about that. So we generally don't try and get that low.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
We're just looking to see like, where are they? How many are there? All that, you know, and it's interesting. Like we have one area that's got some real mature willows, and I mean, it doesn't matter if it's cloudy, sunny, that area is always just loaded, you know.
Yeah, that's cool.
And the other thing, and Brian Anderson's the one that told me this, you know, we've got habitat mounds just like many WRP tracks do. And he was like, you know, you should just slick those off completely and make them into loafing bars where the birds can get out and preen and all that. And those things will just be loaded up too, you know, with ducks just sitting on them, drying out, you know.
Right. That's great info. Do you, on a percentage basis or acreage on that 800 acres, how large is that refuge? You know, I mean, you noted several places where you're refuging. How many acres is that refuge?
Well, we have two separate refuges. The one would be, I don't know, 180 acres. And the other one, by prescription, by our own plan, we, and I haven't measured it, but it was about half. That was, the south half was refuge. But the last several years, we haven't even hunted. We're probably only hunting about a third of it for the last several years. So, we've just kind of given a buffer, and then the ducks have just kind of been like, okay, well, this is safe now also, and time will tell, but generally our numbers are even better hunting less property since we've gone to doing that.
Talk to me a little bit, Ira. Why did you choose that spot? And I don't know, Dad, you might have been about to ask that same question. Why did you choose that spot in particular? And there might be a lot of reasons, but it also seems like on any farm, the ducks have a spot that they just like for some reason or another.
You mean that spot as far as where the refuge is located on the property?
Yeah.
Well, it's changed a lot of things, but the main reason why we did the south side was, one, our best ingress egress on the north side. Two, Fountain Grove's east side refuge is north of us. And so it just made the most sense from an ingress egress standpoint to do it on the south side. Also from a where are they coming from and where are they going to, safe spot to safe spot. Your hunting area was still going to be underneath them. And so those are the two main reasons. The other one would be that the north end is a little more broken up. It's not just like a big block. There's several little smaller pools there. And so it just gives us a little more diversity without impacting those ducks at all. Like, they have no idea that we're even out there hunting, even if they're on the biggest chunk of water that we can, that we allow ourselves to hunt. We can be hunting on the west side, and those ducks, that it's a refuge too. They don't even know we're out there, and we might not hunt it. If the hunting's really good in that small spot, we'll just keep hunting traffic there and just leave them wherever, anywhere else. So, and then we have a bunch of timber holes too on the two parts that we hunt. So we've got, boy, I don't even know. We probably have maybe like 8 or 10 different timber holes that we hunt a lot.
Awesome.
When do you start managing it as refuge? Does it stay refuge as soon as you start putting water in? First part of season, end of October? What kind of timeline?
No, as soon as we start pumping water. There's normally not many. Well, it depends on the year, but if it's dry and we're pumping, then we normally won't have that many ducks area wide until pretty close to hunt season. Now, if we get a flood and there's water area wide, then those ducks there may be a bunch of ducks around. But generally, until we see that there's some ducks kind of starting to get rafted up there, if we need to do some work down there, and there's 100 ducks or whatever, it's like, well, that doesn't, at that point it doesn't matter. But once you start getting some numbers, we stay out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And that would generally be, well, they're there on the refuge component. Notably, even when the guns are not going off, they're going to key in there. Those ducks remember that spot. They go there. But then when the guns go off, they're immediately there.
Did you know that? I think Kale kind of alluded to that earlier. Was that spot any different from the others in terms of what you mentioned, why you put the refuge there? Was that also a spot that was just naturally attractive to the birds in general, or is that just the place that it ended up because that was the best spot for you guys to put it?
Well, I don't know you could really answer that and know the answer to that, because we never really, other than in the very beginning, we never really hunted there, and in the beginning, our infrastructure was so much different than it is now. It's hard to even compare what your observations were then to what the observations are now, because everything's so turnkey. We have so many ways to get water. We can just step on the turbo and change things in an instant. Whereas back then, we were operating with 2 wells was our only source of water, and if it was a dry year, you just didn't have that much water.
Awesome. So sounds like you use a lot of inviolate refuge on the property. What else, as far as hunting, what other rules do you have for your property as far as do you have cutoff times? Do you have we're only going to go here in a certain time period, or do you use the hunting pools a little differently? Talk about that.
No, we don't, because we have so little pressure really that, there's days where the ducks just aren't going to fly in the morning, a lot of them, and so we might not even go till 11, and most of those are going to be colder days or full moon days or whatever. But no, we normally have 1 to 3 parties hunting per day. And, if you're hunting a traffic hole, so if you're hunting a timber hole, place where they don't live, I mean, you're not, other than pressuring that line, maybe, but those ducks are getting pressured all over. They're getting pressured where they're coming from, where they're going to. I mean, it's generally safe to light pressure or whatever, but it's way different than going where they're living, right? So like if we're going where they're living, then we're much more, everybody's on the team of, hey, you're either coming with me or you're going to a traffic hole because we're going to go hunt, in a spot where they're living there. And generally we're not going there. There's not going to be any sort of time cut off. It's just going to be, we're just going to hunt till we're done. And then we'll get out of there and let them have it.
Gotcha. Since that's a good segue there, I guess a question that I have, if you're going to go to a spot where they're living, do you have an opinion on morning or afternoon in that spot, or just whenever you?
A lot of times we'll just start hunting kind of, maybe 10 o'clock, we'll go out there. But these are trends that you see happening, and, but if we get a little wind or a little change up in something, then sure, we'll go off the bat. But especially when it's really cold, we're not going to go till 11 o'clock.
Awesome.
I got another question too, I guess, following up in kind of the middle of all these other directions. But if you have a property like what you're talking about where you're located close to a big refuge with, Fountain Grove right there, and Swan Lake's not terribly far from you as well. That probably plays into how you refuge your property a little bit differently than say you take that same property and put it out in a kind of standalone situation where you don't have other refuges to help you in any way. How would you look at that property? Would you change anything you've done? I mean, obviously that's an open-ended question. You could go 100 ways with it, but just trying to think about, there's a lot of places that aren't necessarily close to the other refuges that I think refuge is vitally important no matter where it's at. But again, like say if somebody's out there, 30 miles from a big refuge like that, what would you suggest in that case for refuge or hunting?
I'd say they should have bought their property somewhere else, because you're always better off to shoot someone else's ducks rather than your own.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good thought.
And then look at the weather and do what you want based on weather patterns and migration changes. Maybe you do it a little bit more, a little bit less, but you have to really hold ducks and manage ducks. You have to have a big enough piece of property that you can hunt it without disturbing the whole place. So, to me, a minimum size for something like that, if you just had one group hunting a place, I think you could do it if you had 150 acres or more probably. But anything below that, man, it's going to be pretty tough. And then, of course, the number of guns and groups makes a huge difference also. I mean, if you're planning on having 3 groups hunting, 150 acres is not big at all, right? And a lot of it depends on topography. And, a duck is tolerant of sound for the most part, but they are not tolerant of seeing people. They do not like that at all. And the other thing that ducks are extremely tolerant of is gunshots. So you can shoot, you can have a volley across the levee 125 yards from a bunch of ducks, and as long as they can't see you, it doesn't bother them. I can walk to the ranger that is 20 yards from the levee and start that ranger up and they'll all flush. And so things that they hear frequently, like gunshots, they're very tolerant of. Things that they don't hear much, like anchors beating against the side of a boat, or, a wheeler starting up, or people talking. Those are the things that they don't like.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'll throw out a quick kind of comment on that too, I guess, because being at Shanks for several years, one of the ways that we could always tell if we had new ducks on the area was when we'd hear the train come across the tracks and blow the horn. You could look out the back window, and if there was a cloud of ducks everywhere, you knew you had new ducks because they weren't used to it yet. Those trains come through there every day, and by about the second or third day, train blows the horn, you look back there and you don't see any birds flying. So you're exactly right. They get used to those same sounds, whether that's shooting or in this case a train or what have you. But in those same situations, if you drove down the road next to that refuge area there, big chunk, but had road along one side, you stopped the car and started looking for any length of time, even not getting out, just stopped the car and started looking, they would start flushing on you as well. So yeah, big difference between visual and sounds that they're used to hearing for sure.
I got a question for Ira. So I've worked a lot with private landowners on the east side of the state in the Confluence area and a large wetland complex there. I get questions a lot about, well, the ducks, they come in right after shooting hours and they're on a pattern and that's all they do. And how would you respond to that, Ira? What would you advise them? To break that pattern, you need to do what?
Well, I mean, First off, I think part of it is just that's the nature of the duck. I mean, even before they're ever getting shot, like when we go to Canada, we'll see that, on ducks that really have had no pressure, and probably just a small percentage of them have even lived long enough to have had pressure. But, they're part of their behavior, especially, I mean, pressure makes it worse. I'm certain conditions, weather, the moon, all those things play in. But I think the less you pressure a place that is, so these are all feeding spots that you're talking about. So like on our refuge, it's the exact opposite. They're there all day, and then they leave it at night to go to the places to eat at night. And then they come back before the sun comes up. And so all it would take is us going down there and hunting 4 or 5 days, and they'd be all screwed up. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, but then you take some huge steps backwards. So I don't know that there's, all that you can do to me to address the nocturnal behavior is a better job on pressure management. Like in some and now I'm talking about our business, some of our agricultural areas that we hunt, it's pretty common that we'll go in there at like 10 o'clock, and then you better be out of there by 3 o'clock. So, we're letting them do kind of their first morning stuff and not disturbing them, and then kicking them out midday or a portion of them. Some of these tracks are huge, and you're just kicking out a few. From just a hunting standpoint, you'd like to get rid of all of them so you didn't have any competition. But and then we'll hunt them midday, and then when they're starting to come back in there in the afternoon, there's 0% chance that we're going to hunt until quitting time. We're going to be out of there way before that. And so, I think the quickest way that you can get them off your place and make them nocturnal is to hunt every hour the sun's up.
I know
people.
guys.
Yeah, I mean, I say it all the time ad nauseum, but if you want to make your ducks nocturnal, flood corn. Your ducks are going to use your place, but that doesn't mean you're going to shoot.
Right. Yeah, that's great advice. So I may spread that around, based on what I'm learning today. So
yeah, I completely agree. It seems like that's a common complaint is nocturnal ducks, and so I would agree with everything you said there, Ira. I think it was
habitat flats. I mean, we have several places that are hot ag areas, and we definitely, like I said, on Locust Grove, we don't have a cutoff time or anything like that. Pressure management is extremely vital to those spots. So like when it's the way Tony does it there is kind of the opposite of what traditional thinking would be. So like when we get a big push and we get some new ducks show up, we won't even hunt those ag spots for 3 days. We will not go in there. We just let them have it for 3 days. So they're like, okay, this is where I'm going to come eat. And it's a pretty dang safe spot to come get my groceries. And so we'll just let them have it for a little while. And then once we have them kind of hooked, then we'll start putting a little bit of pressure on them,
Yeah, that's great because the birds benefit and so does the hunting.
That follows right along with what I've always kind of preached too with both public land management and our stuff that we do is, before you try to hunt those birds, get them established in that area. Let them, like you just said, get them established where they're using that. They know that food's there. They're going to be happy and content, and then bring the pressure in. But if you look at it in reverse and try to hunt that spot on a regular basis or a daily basis, and then try to get bird use, it's super, super difficult. So, much easier to get in there before you start shooting at them.
Yeah, and when they're new, I mean, you can kill them in a mud puddle. So let them have your good stuff and shoot them in the spots that aren't that great because they're going to be, a lot easier to kill. And then when they start wising up a little bit, then you got some fresh hot spots that haven't had any pressure, and you can just you can just use that resource for longer.
No, awesome stuff. So last couple questions here, and then we can call it. But I guess I have a question about was there evolutions to your pressure and refuge management plan? Like, you acquired the property in the early 2000s. I imagine you probably learned some things along the way. So talk me through, like, what did you do when you started? Because I think there's a lot of people that, end up with a farm right now and maybe where you were 15 years ago. So I'd be curious to know, like, what were the evolutions of your refuge and pressure management plans?
Well, we had become much more serious about it over time. So in the beginning, like I said, I didn't even hunt. We didn't hunt Locust Grove that much. We were gone working all the time. And so everything was refuge most of the time, but our infrastructure was also not near what it is now, so if it was a dry year, we didn't have as much water on the landscape as we will now. Now everything's like just so turnkey, it's crazy. But in the beginning, and for years, probably up until about 7 years ago, the biggest event that could happen that would make us go hunt our refuge was if we froze up completely and all the birds left it because they had to. And it was froze solid with, let's say, 8 inches of ice. Well, those birds are going to come, a small percentage of those birds are going to come back and check that every afternoon, especially if it's warming up at all. And so we'd go down there and put an ice eater in, open up a hole that was big enough to, float some decoys in, and we'd shoot until it was going to be warm enough to where it could provide habitat for them again, right? And I don't think there was anything wrong with that, but just out of sticking to our plan 100%, we quit doing that probably 5 or 6 years ago. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't do it because I don't think it changes anything. An ice eater hole it's nothing other than a place to shoot them, right? It's not like they're going to utilize that at all. But yeah, we used to do that a lot more than we have the last 6-7 years. Yeah.
Awesome.
And it was highly effective. I mean, I'm talking about some really, 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 really good bunch work, at a time of the year where it can be pretty tough. But yeah, those ducks, man, they come check it every afternoon. And if you're there, and I'm talking, we would generally go in there with like 18 stuffers and no spinners, no nothing, and just it had some really incredible hunts. Yeah.
That might be some of my favorite is the later in the year where you don't see many, but the ones that you do see might come in a big bunch and you get them right in your face. Those are good ones. So Dad, I'm remembering one where you shot that black duck out of that group of mallards. If you recall that one, that was a fun one. But yeah, anyway,
one other thing I'll say here while I'm thinking about it is and you just never know what all the factors might be, but let's say back in the 2005 to 2000, it'd be later than that, I'd say up till about 2018 or so, most of the traffic up in the North Bottoms was all east to west and west to east. So there were a lot of ducks coming and going from Fountain Grove's east side to their feeding areas. It was a lot of east-west traffic. And we got more serious about our refuge stuff, started holding quite a few more birds. And I think a place north of us kind of did the same. And now you just see so much north-south traffic along with the east-west traffic. There's a lot more ducks doing things that are varied than what it used to be. So, you'll see ducks coming and going from here and there, just kind of in different directions that you didn't used to see very much at all.
Yeah.
And I just have to attribute that to, more safe spots.
Absolutely. How many, just if you don't mind this question, or I'm just curious, on 180 acres, about how many birds do you peek out during fall migration on your refuge?
Well, they prefer the one on Locust Grove more than they do the one on Locust Creek Bottoms. But man, I mean, I'm certain there's at least 50,000.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
I mean, there's a lot.
Yeah,
a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome, because that just goes back to that give back point I made at the beginning, and so many birds are benefiting from that. 50,000, and you take however many days for duck use days. That's a lot. I mean, it's a lot.
Well, but the refuge is the limiting resource, right? Your duck use days on a refuge have nothing to do with food, right? Because sure, I'm sure they eat what's there, but that's not why they're there. They're getting all their calories somewhere else. And so you can have a whole bajillion of duck use days just by inviolate refuge. You're providing the most limiting resource on the landscape that there is for those birds. And, I'm not saying we're doing it just because we're the greatest guys in the world. We're doing it because we're direct benefactors of it, but we also do it because, we believe in giving those birds a safe spot, and we're happy to do it,
Yeah, and you're contributing to the life history of the bird. I mean, no doubt about it. Yeah.
And we're blessed to be able to do it. I mean, it's awesome to be able to do that,
How many times do you bring maybe somebody new to the farm? And I'm sure this has happened over the years where all the ducks are down there. How many times are they like, why aren't we going there? They think you're nuts. You're not going where the ducks are. Does that happen a lot, or is that uncommon?
No, when we used to guide on Locust Grove some, and those guys always wanted to go down there. The people that come now are all like family and friends, and they all kind of know what we're doing and all that. So no, we don't get much of that. I mean, there's times where someone, one of the boys' friends or whatever it may be, like, they're not, but the kids, they know because they've been backhanded a few times for, hey, no, you can't go. No, you can't go for a ride on Locust Grove on the Ranger. Are you crazy? They know. Like, I remember one year, a couple years ago, Corey was trying to kill this buck that was out there on the refuge, and I'm hunting, and all of a sudden I'm like, what in the world is going on? So I call him. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, Dad, I'm out here stalking this big deer. I'm like, get the hell out of there. So they know the deal now too. But yeah, no, it's not that common, but it'd be fun. It'd be fun to do it a time or two, but you're only hurting yourself. So
yeah. No, that's exactly right. And at that point, you've established such a special thing for the ducks. It'd be kind of tough to end that over just a hunt.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, it's kind of like dog training. It's like, sure, we can go down there and hunt and shoot it, but then how many steps backwards have we taken? You push that button on your e-collar and you burn your dog. Okay, well, it may have gotten the message, but how long is it going to take you to unwind what you just did? Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of the way that I think about it. It's like, if I just go down there and shoot it one time, let's say there's a huge west wind and I hunt the east side. Okay, well, it may not move the needle at all, or it may move the needle a bunch, and then that may set a precedent for what's going to happen the rest of that year. Maybe even part of the next year. So yeah, we just stick to pretty inviolate now.
Awesome.
Do you keep that inviolate kind of approach even after season? I mean, do you try to maintain limited disturbance in those areas even after season?
No, because generally everything's frozen up after the season. And no, I mean, there's so many, when the ducks are here coming back through, generally that's going to be, more of a February thing. And I will shoot some honkers and sometimes some specks there on a warm up,
Mm-hmm.
But generally there's not that many ducks around. Like early February, there's not, in our part of the world, man, it's pretty dang desolate. I mean, there's just, unless it's really warm, there's not much around. There's usually those ducks are down on the Missouri or points further south, but the Grand does not provide much for a Cheru will freeze solid. All our smaller stuff's froze solid. All the ag stuff's drained. So, it's just a pretty icy, barren landscape that time of year.
Yeah, for sure. So, well, Ira, is there anything we haven't asked you that you were hoping we would?
No, but again, I think when we're talking about refuge, you need to be thinking a whole lot more cover, security, those kinds of things than food. Yeah. And so that's kind of our go stab some willow cuttings, do some tree plantings, do things to try to get a visual barrier. There's some things that we haven't ever had to do just because we have more room. But I think if you had a smaller area, plant some Egyptian wheat, plant something that's going to give you a visual barrier between the places where a duck might see some human activity and where you want them to feel safe. The more that you can keep them from seeing things, the more secure they're going to feel. Like, think all the times you're hunting flooded corn and they can't see. And you've got ducks swimming 150 yards from where you're shooting, and you shoot and they don't even get up, Mm-hmm. And so that visual barrier is super important. The other thing, just like there is we're hunting, someone had asked about mowing. We try to show a third water in our refuge pools at least. So, we'll start just as a flood hedge. We'll start mowing in August just so that if we do get like September flood, we still have some open area, and we'll mow some bigger pools, some bigger open water for them to kind of key in on, as well as lanes where they can get into the moist soils. The water's coming up, but mowing is a huge component of duck use. If you just flood it and you didn't get in there and mow it, and especially if you have tall smartweed, you're just not going to get much duck use, especially not right off the bat. So and we can't, we're open to the floodplain, so we don't know when we're going to flood. We've had 5 floods already this year and some big ones that created some big damage. But, you can't just say, okay, we're going to go mow October 1st because you might be full pool October 1st. So, we try to mow in like 3 different time periods, the first one's just the flood hedge. The second one is trying to get some horizontal cover for invertebrates. And then the third one, if we're lucky enough to get that far down the line, would be for some seed utilization on the ground. But that's the minimal reason that we would mow. It's mainly just to get those ducks started and show the water so they recognize the place and it's attractive to them.
Absolutely.
Nuts.
Awesome. Well, Ira, thank you so much for joining today. I think your advice and thoughts are aligned with what we've been talking about, and I think it'll help a lot of people. So we appreciate you taking the time out of your day to share, and hopefully you catch a tarpon or two here this week, and you have a good trip.
We're gonna try. Yeah, I'm gonna get dehydrated. I know that.
Safe travels, buddy.
Yeah,
Appreciate it, man.
See you again. Thanks a lot for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was good.
Awesome.